Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to a brand new week of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for tuning us in as we get prepared for little Tommy Whitmore, and we're going to talk some UFOs tonight. So it's going to get very, very interesting indeed. We're going to hit all subjects from UFOs today and MJ-12 and everything in between. Josh Rutledge will be in for hour 3 for the UFO report. And the best part about tonight, we have each and every one of you, including Eternity Eternal in the gold medal position, Kitty Caddywhack with a silver, Tim Mothman and his goatee sharing a bronze medal tonight. Hi, Bar Madison and Robert Lamoth. Good to see you. Paramarv, how you doing tonight? And Jaquetta, how are you? Nice to have you here. Michael Morris, our attorney at large. How you doing, buddy? Nice to see you as we continue on with our roll call here. And while we're waiting, we want to make sure that all of our Canadian listeners had a great Thanksgiving weekend and hope you had a good one with your family and friends. Let's go to Kitty Caddywhack for kicking off the Super Chat tonight. Thank you very, very much. The Super Chat is a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So thank you so much, Kitty, once again. Mel WD40 is here lubing us up for tonight's show because Tom Whitmore says, I will not talk UFOs on SOR unless Mel lubes me up. So Mel is lubing up Tom as we speak. Necessary dialogue. Skip to my Lou is here. Skip to my Lou will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio if you don't mind. To the left of the studio. Stephanie Kenny Blankenship, nice to have you here. Jaquetta again. And Mama Catherine, I love you, my dear. I hope you're having a wonderful evening. I know you're going to enjoy tonight's show, and I know you love Tom Whitmore so much. I know you do. All right. Let's continue on here. Say hello to number one, the lovely and talented Nicole Sackich in the chat room, because I know she loves her Tommy Whitmore as well. Scrolling on down, we say hello next to, Flat 6, Cosmic Joe. Nice to have you guys here as we continue on with our roll call here. And who is next? Road Flare, nice to see you. And Thomas Rock, nice to have you here. Millennium, my man, happy Thanksgiving to you, my friend. And Millennium will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind. To the right of the studio, please bring an extra turkey leg for him, as he didn't get enough for his Thanksgiving dinner. Moving on down, we say hello to Stargazer and Pam Harris. Nice to have you here as well. Race Fan, how you doing? Jay True Seeker. And Jerence Carter, the Jerence Carter has arrived. Undead Jed, nice to have you here. Digger Dog, Jessica McCreary, nice to see you both. Hi there, Walter Kochabinski. And who is next on our list here? Well, let's just scroll down and find out. Dave Tiger Williams, he'll drop the gloves for you. Super Crazy, how are you tonight? As we continue on with our roll call. And let's scroll on down and let's say hello next to Mickey G. How are you? And who's next on our list? Well, we keep scrolling, and there's Tartar Saucer, Anil, Frankie B. Nice to have you all here And Andrew B., nice to see you. Let's get the radio side going. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We're glad to have you here as Tom Whitmore is going to come in to talk some UFOs and so much more. We are in roll call on our YouTube side right now as we say hello to Matthew Goodka. Nice to see you. Dead Fish, good to have you back here. And Luscious Jules, nice to see you. And who's next? Number 14 in your program, starting at center ice from Stockholm, Sweden. Lars Jansson. There he is. He's already got 3 goals in the first 4 games of the season. He's red hot right now. All right. Benno, how are you? And we are caught up. Hey, we want to remind everybody the super chat is open. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show. Hi there, Jeff Knox. How you doing? As well, you could join our YouTube membership, which supports us as well. And, of course, you could shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag, so make sure you check it on up. It's that time of the night where I ask all of you to throw your horns up. Let's rock.
Are you ready to hear your mystic voice of the night?
It's time to wake up.
He's here. Shush. Be quiet. He's ready for you to listen. Let's point our ears towards the little cabin in the woods, where together, my friends, we own the night. It's time for Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott.
From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot. Read the news wire. Check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We have an amazing show coming up for you tonight as Tom Whitmore is going to be here. He's formerly of MUFON. He's currently doing a big study on his own about MJ-12, but he wants to talk some UFOs tonight. Just hang out. Then in hour number 3, we are going to bring in Swamp Dweller for another spooky story. We're going to follow that up with the UFO wizard, Josh Rutledge, coming on in for the UFO report. So let's get right to it, shall we? Tom Whitmore is a former director of MUFON and a veteran UFO researcher. He is deep diving into one of the greatest mysteries in UFO history, the MJ-12 documents, with decades of investigative experience and knowledge of this. Tom is someone who has found a new passion in trying to find out what really happened with MJ-12. Did it even exist? And what are the government secrets around it? Tom is also a UFO buff. He is somebody who, when he was a part of MUFON a number of years ago, sat on the board of directors. He was somebody who was very involved with trying to bring transparency to the UFO subject. He is a man on a mission trying to figure out the mysteries that are right behind our noses. We can smell them, we can taste them, but we just can't figure out where they are hidden. Let's bring him on in. Tom Whitmore, it is always a pleasure to have you on Spaced Out Radio, my friend. How are you?
Thank you, Dave. It's great to see you again, and it's great to see your new studio. I like your Bigfoot. It's very lit up there. I like your Texas cap, and there's a lot going on there in your studio, so I'm glad to be here.
Well, I figured I would wear my Texas hat for you because you are a proud Texan. And I figured, I'd show you a little bit of love. Because you do mean a lot to me. And, you have been a real central figure of knowledge for me when, I might be going a little bit haywire, or I might be going a little bit off the rails on some of my little conspiracy theories that I have. But you are a voice of reason, and somebody who never gets too high or gets too low. But the one thing we do have in common is that you absolutely love the UFO subject. You are somebody who comes from the business world. How did the UFO world fall into your lap?
I was into UFO. Well, I wasn't really into UFOs, but I first got interested when I was only 12 years old, because I was at a friend's house and they had some Donald Kehoe books on the shelf, and I started reading those, and that initiated my interest in the subject. And there wasn't a lot going on in the late 60s, and then the Air Force got out of the UFO business. There was a big flap in 1973, but I didn't hear the details about it. But I had always been reading a lot about, especially current European history, and I got into studying Russia and the Soviet Union, and I learned a lot about intelligence and espionage that way. Then in the 1980s, I happened to see the UFO Cover-Up Live program, which piqued my interest. Then when the MJ-12 documents came out, that intersected with my interest in intelligence and espionage, because when I saw the MJ-12 documents, I immediately thought that it had something to do with intelligence. And around 1990, I started to get active. I was really reading up on the subject, and I became a member of MUFON. And after several years, I was welcomed onto the board of MUFON. And I was on the board of MUFON for a very long time, but I was able to keep up with a lot of what was going on. And I knew all of the MUFON executive directors. And this went on until 2022, when I retired. Now, from the board. Now, I retired from full-time employment in 2019, and I moved to Washington, D.C. To be able to do research at the National Archives and at the Library of Congress. And I did both, and I had a blast. I loved it. I loved riding the metro downtown, going down there, being right next to the Supreme Court and the Capitol, and going to the National Archives. But then COVID came along and the government shut down, and I couldn't do anything with the government offices, and I got homesick, so I moved back here to San Antonio. And when I was still on the board with MUFON, I spent a month during the summer at Terlingua, Texas, because I have relatives there. And I wrote my first research paper, actually sitting in Big Bend National Park. And that started a trend. I've written 6 research papers so far, but when I got back to San Antonio, I decided I just need to write a book. And my book is focused on the history of the MJ-12 controversy and some perspectives on MJ-12. And that's what I'm devoting my retirement years to. I've made a pledge to myself that I'm going to see this through to the end. It's going to be a long process because I'm only on chapter 4, and I want to write at least 20 chapters.
Oh my.
So here I am.
Here you are. It's funny that you mentioned UFO Live, because I believe it's the 37th anniversary of that today.
Yes. And that's one of the things I've researched on my current chapter. I've titled my 4th chapter Disclosure, because of the appearance of the various MJ-12 documents, the Aquarius Telex and the Carter briefing document, the Eisenhower briefing document, the Truman Forrestal memo, and the Cutler Twining memo, and then the UFO Cover-Up Live show. So all of these things occurred during the 1980s. And one of my first tasks in my research during this segment has been researching the UFO Cover-Up Live program, and I've learned a lot about it. There's probably a lot more to learn, but it's been so long since it came on that there are probably some details I'm missing. For example, Tracy Torme was a writer for that program, and he was central in it. And of course, he's deceased now, unfortunately.
I want to ask you just, because this show is totally unscripted, and we, right before the show, you said, Dave, I just want to talk some UFOs, like no subject. Let's just have a chat. And that's what we're going to do. And these are my favorite type of shows to do, Tom. But why do you think in your mind there has been such a magnitude of cover up of this subject over the decades?
I think nuclear weapons and nuclear war has had a lot to do with it, because the government, the CIA, and the Air Force and the military branches had been very focused on defending the United States, especially during the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s, by developing a nuclear arsenal. And for one thing, they had to make sure that they didn't have an accidental firing of a nuclear missile, and they couldn't have an accidental detonation of an atomic bomb. And at the same time, they had to defend against a nuclear attack, mainly from the Soviet Union. And I think that was their primary focus, their primary responsibility. UFOs were there, and they, on a public basis, were an annoyance. And somehow, I don't know how or why the Air Force allowed itself to get into this position, but they morphed into a position where they were responding to public UFO reports, and they hated it. They absolutely hated it. So what they did was they just gave any explanation for a UFO sighting that they could think of. We all know the swamp gas and all that. And publicly, they convinced the scientific community and the media and academia that there was nothing to UFOs. Now, at the same time, I think covertly they were recording UFO sightings. They were filing them and maybe even studying and analyzing them for anything that was affecting the military. And also, I think that they probably collected a lot of information that they probably threw away. They cast off, they either threw it away or they warehoused it, and they've forgotten about it. So on that side of it, I think that the military branches have had absolutely no interest in being publicly engaged in UFOs, and we're seeing that played out even today in this disclosure movement that we're seeing from the public.
Do you think the reason why they're keeping it out of the public spectacle or do not want it is because there are true secrets that they have that they do not want to talk to us about? Namely, maybe they have made contact, maybe they have had crash retrievals, that we hear so many of these eyewitnesses coming out and seeing this. I mean, what is your thoughts?
I became convinced in the early 90s that there had been UFO recoveries, but because as a UFO person, and I'm a UFO believer, I was brought up on Leonard Strainfield, and I had read all of his status reports. So I personally think that I have been thinking that there have been recoveries of UFOs and bodies and all of that good stuff. And it only stands to reason that if there have been UFO recoveries, that would be super secret. I mean, they would just have such a tight lid of security on it that us little old people in the public have no way of getting to it. And hints have been dropped from time to time with people that have looked into this and tried to get to the bottom of it, that you don't know what you're dealing with, and just stay out of it.
Should we stay out of it, though? I mean, even during your time with MUFON, I mean, were you guys ever told to keep your noses clean, keep your noses clear, stop digging?
I've never been told that. Now, John Schuessler, who I had known for years and who I consider to be a dear friend, and he's very elderly now and very frail. But when I started this research project, he said, watch your back. But I haven't seen any indication that anyone is watching me other than just being a citizen and being a little bit in the public. I go on programs like yours, Dave, and other programs, and occasionally I'll go on a Twitter space. But I personally have never had any indication like that. And I don't know of any other MUFON board members or MUFON members that have been warned off. Now, they don't have to be that direct. I think that if a person, it all depends on whether you're in possession of classified information. That's where the rubber meets the road. And so, if you are in possession of classified information and you're not supposed to be, then you might get a visit from the FBI or you might get into trouble. Now, I'm just a civilian. 95% of all the information that I glean is from open sources. And then I have some other contacts that I developed in the UFO field that I have received some information from. But the only reason why I'm holding it back is because I don't want to spoil the book.
So getting back to the government side of this, should the public believe that somewhere they are hiding some sort of UFO technology? And if that is the case, where do you think they're hiding it?
I think if the public pays attention to what the Congress people have been saying, I think they could be inclined to believe that this could be the case. Now, I think there are good indications that a lot of people have talked to both House members and Senate members, people that have direct knowledge of these things, of recovered UFOs, of legacy back engineering programs, of bodies, and all that, and even masses of UFO data that has been collected by the massive national security state. So I really do think that if people were aware of the amount of activity that's gone on in terms of informing kind of in a back channel the congressional people, that there is reason to believe that it is true. Now, even recently this summer, there were 2 articles that came out in the Wall Street Journal poo-pooing this whole thing and talking about Yankee Blue, and they'd been showing pictures of saucers to Air Force officers and military people and putting fear of God in them and all this. And I think it remains to be seen how much of that is really true. But this is just my personal opinion, but I think that there are so-called whistleblowers that would like to come forward, but they don't feel that they have the adequate legal protections to come forward publicly, but they are informing informally in the background.
Now, I may take a little bit of heat from this, Tom, and you may not agree with me on this, but I will ask you, because you're a man of respect to me in this world. I don't personally think, outside of maybe David Grush, that we have had a true whistleblower. I think we've had a lot of experiencers. I think we've had a lot of people who have seen things, but not in the term of what whistleblower truly means towards bringing quality information to the public in order to break this story wide open. What would you consider a whistleblower?
Edward Snowden is a good example of a whistleblower. And he had information on the data that the NSA was collecting on U.S. citizens, just surveillance of U.S. citizens, which he felt was unconstitutional. And he had all this information that he wanted to break this story into in with some journalists. And I believe he was either living in, I think he was in Singapore or somewhere in the Far East. He was scared to death, and he managed to get a couple of journalists to meet with him. He went through various and sundry security procedures to make sure that he wasn't detected by any other party. And now he's living in Russia. And I think he's a perfect example of a true whistleblower. And I can't blame anyone from the military industrial complex or the intelligence agencies for not wanting to go public when they're risking their careers, they're risking their pensions, they're risking their family stability, they are risking legal liability, criminal liability. You know, it's easy to say that these people should come forward and tell what they know so that we know of people that have direct information, but it's really too much to ask, given the Espionage Act and all of the other national security laws that are in existence that keep, if there are UFO secrets secret, and any other classified information secret.
We have about 3 minutes to go before we have to go to break. At the bottom of the hour, Tom Whitmore is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We're talking just some UFO subjects tonight. Tom, the way I look at these people who have come out, I do believe they're brave. I do believe that they have a story to tell. I do believe that, you know, they are potentially seeing things that should not be there. You know, I mean, we look at Dylan Borland about the black triangle that he saw, you know, while outside on a break while he was serving for the Air Force. And I look at stories like this and I think, wow, you know, black triangle, that could be human, that could be non-human, depending on the size of it and everything like that. Do you think a lot of these whistleblowers actually know what could be alien technology compared to US technology?
I personally do, but it's just like, Dave, let's say there's some kind of a big crime and the authorities are trying to find the perpetrator, and they ask for the public's help. And they get all these phone calls and emails and tips, and some of them are phony, you know, some of them are fake, people just trying to get attention. And I think that the Congress people in the Senate and the House, and I think Tim Burchett has mentioned this, you know, they get these fake whistleblowers coming in, but that's only part of the story, because I think that there are real people that would testify if they had the proper legal protections. And it's the sad state of affairs is that I don't think that Congress has come out with those legal protections that the whistleblowers need.
And I would agree with you on that. I really do agree that there has to be better whistleblower protection in order to try and you know, have some of these incredibly knowledgeable and gifted people come on out with this top. But if we're dealing with something that is beyond all scopes of government, how do they even know what they're whistleblowing on? And I'll need about a 30-second answer on that.
There's a lot of compartmentation. That's how the military and the intelligence agencies work. So a lot of folks that are in that area, they know something, but they don't know everything. But if you got enough people to testify from different areas, you'd start to get a critical mass on that. And I think that people know what they knew in particular about what they were dealing with.
All right, Tom Whitmore, we got him for another 90 minutes here on Spaced Out Radio. Formerly a MUFON, currently independent researcher on the MJ-12 documents. We're talking UFOs tonight with little Tommy Whitmore. We love him around here. This is Spaced Out Radio. We'll be right back. All right, we're clear. Good start, Tom. That went really quick.
Boy, it sure did.
Mm-hmm.
I like your beard, Dave.
Thank you. Thank you. It's getting a little fuzzy. Almost needs a trim again. Almost needs a trim again. That's all right. That's all right. Let's see here. Jules, I'll ask that in hour 2 for you. Benno with the comment of the night. Tom is nice.
Well, I try to be.
Tom is nice.
Too much of the UFO world isn't.
Right? I would agree with you on that one. I would totally agree with you on that one.
There's a big knife fight going on right now between Luis Elizondo and with Disclosure Mike and Tupacabra and Red Panda.
I have not been following it, to be blunt.
It's not a good use of anyone's time.
About 8 months ago. No, goodness, it was about a year ago now. I just said I'm done with it. I'm just done with it. Like it's not worth the time anymore. It just really isn't.
Do I have time to get a glass of water?
Yeah. You got about 3.5 minutes.
Okay.
Let's go here. Go here. All right. Kurt M, how you doing? Warden Dragon, nice to see you. AJ, nice to see you. Wow, you met a Canadian citizen visiting America. Nice for you, Kurt M. Good for you. All right. Excuse me. Got about 1.5 minutes, Tom.
Okay.
Blue Cruz, how you doing? I've never had my Facebook or email checked, Kurt. I would say that's highly untrue. All right. Big thank you tonight to Kitty Caddywhack and UAP Thompson for the great super chats. We greatly appreciate your love and support. Jeff Steve Garvey is here. He'll hit a home run for you. It is playoff time. And here we go. Here we go with the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We're glad to have you with us as we talk UFOs with Mr. Whitmore coming up here momentarily. But first, we want to remind all of you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tom Whitmore is here. He's an independent researcher into the MJ-12 category of strangeness when it comes to the cover-up of UFOs. We're just having a good UFO subject tonight. Tom, thank you so much for being here. We greatly appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me on, Dave. It's good to be here again. It's good to be in touch.
We were talking whistleblowers right before the break, and you know, it kind of leads me to think of what's going on a lot of the social media platforms regarding whistleblowers, who's coming out, who's not. Jason Sands made about a year and a half ago now made a very public open remark about him allegedly whistleblowing about what he came in contact with. He did that on an X space. Do you think that these people coming out in such a public forum is healthy for moving the subject forward?
Yes, I think it's healthy if they're credible. And sometimes you get into this pattern where a person comes out with a very interesting story, very interesting claim, and then over time, the story grows and things are added to the story that weren't there to begin with. And after several years, the person has almost destroyed his or her credibility by enlarging and embellishing on the original story. So I think it's very important, if a person is serious about going public with a story that's not risky for them, legally, if they go public, that they stick with the basic story that they started with.
What about, okay, let me ask you this. What would be the perfect whistleblower in the UFO world? Who or what would they have to be?
I think the Snowden pattern might work. In other words, a person has documents, has evidence, maybe photographs, maybe films, maybe documents, but has to go out of country, somewhere that person is not vulnerable, and gets with journalists like Edward Snowden did and gets the information out that way. Now, the Snowden material did make national exposure, but are people worried about that now? It's like we all just move on with our lives. And meanwhile, the government has the technological capability, I believe, to surveil just about everything that we do online and in communications, telephone, whatever. And they take all, it's not that they're spying on us personally, but they're just vacuuming up, sucking up all of this information and storing it in huge databases so that if they need to use it later, they will. But I think maybe if a person could walk out with enough proof, enough really direct evidence, and maybe even proof, and be in a position where they can't be accessed legally, then that might work. And it's interesting that you take someone like Gary McKinnon in the UK. Now, I don't know if he got into something that's really truly extraterrestrial, or the US having spaceships and all that. I don't know if that's true, but I do know that he got into, I think, a DoD system, and the US government wanted him bad. They tried for years to extradite him to the United States, and thankfully the British government didn't comply. So I think maybe a pattern like that might work.
Explain to people who Gary McKinnon is, for people who may not know.
I'm not expert, but he's a British citizen, and he's I don't know if he's an amateur or professional computer hacker, but he accessed a DoD system, and he found certain things in the system that indicated that there was a space force before there was a space force, and that there were basically extraterrestrial officers and ships listed in some government inventory or another. And because he had broken into this DoD computer system, the US government wanted to prosecute him, and they wanted him extradited to the United States.
Do you think that the government has some sort of access to deniability because they have moved pretty much everything that we may know of into private hands?
I think some of it has been moved into private hands. I think some of it has been destroyed, and some of it is kept in locations that are not accessible except for a very few people that are read in or that have the authority to access it. But there has been a line of thinking actually for many years, because I started hearing about this way back in the 90s, that the government had transferred the UFO research into private industry. But what they can do is, and I think something that can be done is, let's say you're a scientist and you receive something, say it's a gadget, or maybe it's some biologics, and you're asked to analyze it and write a report, but you're not told the whole story. The person's not given the whole picture. They're asked to only study, analyze, and report on one little part of it, and they may not even know where it comes from or what it's for. They're just studying what they've been given. And I think there are a million different ways that all of this evidence can be hidden and stored and concealed in ways that we, the public, just can't get to. We just can't get to it.
Normally, I don't really bring up comments from our chat room because I normally deal with questions. But here's an interesting comment from our one of our YouTube listeners, Ramona, who is saying, I get the feeling the disclosure movement was a psyop to split the UFO scene. I found that a very interesting comment. What's your thoughts on this?
That goes into what I call the double principle. And that's why part of the reason why I've been so fascinated with the MJ-12 issue, because when the MJ-12 documents came out, if the government had recovered a craft at Roswell, then in one respect, and if the documents came from a government agency, and that doesn't mean that they're authentic documents in and of themselves, they could have been a deception created by a government agency. But given that, it served two purposes. On the one hand, a type of disclosure occurred. In other words, ideas and memes were being introduced into the public that have now become widespread, while at the same time dividing the UFO community and dividing the public and discrediting certain people within the UFO community. So you can accomplish two or more things at the same time by engaging in one activity. And I call it the double principle. You're basically killing two birds with one stone.
And that makes sense, but when we look at the disclosure movement, Tom, prior to 2017, I remember people like Victor Vigiani and people like Steve Bassett saying, if we could get one guy from the inside, one person from the inside who could come on out and say, this is really what's going on, it would break this story wide open. And for a time it did when Lou Elizondo came out. Okay. But it seems to have been pushed back under the rug. And many of the people who were into ufology prior to 2017, yourself included, myself included, it really was about disclosure, saying we want answers. We want to know the secrets of what's going on. Then the UAP thing came out to cover up the UFO side. And then all of a sudden, disclosure with this new popularity, really took to X and exploded there and really moved the ball forward on a public level. But really, the new people who are finding this were basically saying, look, I don't care what kind of disclosure we get. Let's just get something. Let's get something that makes sense, saying that these objects are real. And I think that's dangerous on a personal level, that we shouldn't be satisfied with the government saying, these UAPs are real or these UFOs are real. We need answers to so many questions that have been, hinging upon this movement for a long time. And I don't think, that the government is willing to give them up at this time. So what is your appeal towards the disclosure movement?
Well, that's exactly the problem, Dave, because something that could be done is the Secretary of Defense could hold a news conference at the Pentagon and say, we have this data, and they could just be talking about electronic and sensor data that they have of objects coming in and going out of the Earth's atmosphere, and admitting that they have this data and that they know that this anomalous activity is occurring. They have proof of it. Okay. So if they did that, if they had a news conference and someone of authority like the Secretary of Defense, it would raise a million questions. The press, if they do their job, and that's not always the case, unfortunately, but if they do their job, they'd be on that, and there would be 10,000 more questions that they would want answers to. So I don't think the government wants to get into that. Now, I will say, and I don't think I'm off base at all, that I think the Defense Department is doing everything that it can from letting this whole disclosure movement and disclosure trend get out of hand. And I think they're doing a pretty good job of it.
Do you think then, because there is a conspiracy in the UFO world, that there are many bad actors, bad apples that are feeding false information towards the public? That has gone through names like Dr. Stephen Greer or Lou Elizondo or Chris Mellon or even researchers have been, asked if they are false information plants. What's your thoughts on that? Do you think those people are out there in such a small community?
There are two aspects to that, Dave. In the 1980s, Bill Moore, who was a prominent UFO researcher at the time, he gave a talk at the 1989 MUFON Symposium in which he admitted that he had served as an informant for the government. And what he did was he informed on what certain other UFO researchers and what other UFO groups were doing. And he was mostly reporting to the Air Force Office of Special Investigations. And that was like a hydrogen bomb being dropped on the UFO community, because UFO people had never really thought that way, thought about the government that way. They thought the government was hiding and covering up UFO information, but they weren't really thinking that the government had informers within their own ranks. So now, today, with social media, I mean, it's completely wide open. Anybody can get on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever and hide behind some handle, choose any name they want or any word they want. You don't really know who it is. And they can be stirring up trouble or putting out misinformation, dividing one person against another, dividing one group against another, and putting out disinformation or misinformation. It's happening right in front of us. You can watch it real time. So it's so much easier now for that to be done.
Okay, but let's fast forward this just for a couple minutes here, though. Okay, the UFO community, by and large, is an extremely small community, Tom. It is a community of passionate people, people seeking knowledge, people who have a love for this subject. But if you were, say, to place it against any other hobbyist type of group out there on social media, it'd be maybe the same, maybe a little bit smaller. My question then is, why would there be so many alleged government assets putting disinformation out there for a community that is relatively small and relatively even more uninformed outside of their own experiences?
To what I think I've heard you use, Dave, is to control the narrative. And in the 1980s, the UFO world was even smaller than it is now. And they had people like Bill Moore and others, because Bill Moore said he knew of several other people that had been recruited as informants. But Bill Moore and others were informing and reporting back to AFOSI and maybe other government agencies. And that was before we had social media. So, and I asked a certain person this question. I said, look, if the government wanted to know what the UFO people were doing back in the 80s, wouldn't it make more sense for them to want to know what there are groups that they have radios and they watch military aircraft and they go to air shows and they pick up military aircraft on their radios and communicate about it. I said, wouldn't they be more interested in that than the UFO people? And the answer I got was, well, we did that too. So even though the UFO community may be a relatively small group, we could just be one drop in a much larger bucket.
And what do you mean? Explain that, one drop in a much larger bucket.
In other words, government agencies are monitoring various and sundry groups that are either directly related to the development of U.S. technology or peripherally related to U.S. technology. And there are a lot of people that are interested in a number of different aspects of, and they're all different kinds of technologies, from radar and radio and sensor technology, satellites, so on and so forth, that are probably being monitored by several government agencies. I'll give you an example. There are some people that track satellites. That's their hobby.
Yes.
And in one instance, a couple of people that were tracking a classified satellite and talking about it with other people, other hobbyists in that area, it actually caused the government, the NRO or whoever was responsible for it, to change the location of the satellite, to change its orbit, because they knew these people were watching. So what I'm trying to say is, it's not just UFO people.
Is disclosure possible?
It seems to me that if there was going to be big D disclosure, that the various groups in society would have to be prepared. The religious communities would have to be prepared for it. The media would have to be prepared. The academic communities would need to be prepared. The scientific community would need to be prepared. The entertainment companies would need that. And I haven't seen any direct evidence that that's going on, and that's part of the problem, because if they did start trying to read these groups in and get them ready for big D disclosure, that information would get out. There's no way that you could keep that secret, and rumors would fly and we would know about it before the disclosure was ever made. And I don't see any evidence that that's being done.
See, I feel I'm in a little bit of a conundrum personally, because I do believe UFOs are here. I do believe UFOs are real. Okay. I have had my own experiences, Tom, as you know, and as I've shared on this show over the last decade, that have really impacted what I do in my life on a daily basis. It's changed me the last number of years. I've spent the last decade chasing this story down, like many people have. And I just wonder, though, after some of the people I have met, people that I have dealt with, people who understand how black ops work, the military works, so on and so forth, I now wonder whether or not that this is something that is not only here, but is also a major combination with technology that we don't know. Places like Lockheed or Boeing or McDonnell Douglas, technologies they may have that we don't quite understand. And I often wonder if we're getting ripped off because of this alleged disclosure movement, because of them not want to give up the secrets of what they actually have for toys flying in the sky.
Yeah, there can be throw-offs from alien technology. Let's say a major government contractor has a saucer in a secret hangar somewhere, and they can't figure out how the propulsion works. They can't figure out how the things work, but it gives them ideas. It prompts ideas and creativity and innovation, and they develop technologies and products that somewhat mimic the capabilities of the alien technology. Okay, there could be throwbacks in that. And I've also been told very recently by a prominent person in the community, a scientist, that if the patent office gets something that they think that they don't want, the government doesn't want our adversaries to know about, they classify it, and then it's basically filed away, and no one ever gets to use it. So that's another aspect of the problem.
Tom, hold right there. We're going to go to break. 1 hour down, 1 hour to go with Tom Whitmore, independent researcher, loves his UFO subject, loves MJ-12, and we're going to get back to Tom here right after the break. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. All right, Tom, we are clear. We're going to turn things over to the dirty one and the gremlin to see how things are going. Tom, we got about 5.5 minutes, okay?
Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
Hello,
sorry about that,
30.
folks. Hello, Dave. Sorry about that, folks. Didn't mean to have Grandma's butt showing to everybody, but sometimes that's what happens when you got cats and they're rowdy. I'm lucky enough to be able to provide them two sources of income, so they let me stay at their house. It's nice. I'm just whipping up a quick little Halloween drawing because I've been making a few Halloween cartoons and everything for cat fuzz in my mouth for some friends and family and everything. So I figured I would do another one. I'm scooting one in once a week. So this is the third one that I'm doing. It's I watched Halloween 3 again tonight. It's great. One of my favorite Halloween films. Probably the best out of all the entire quote unquote Halloween films. When it was cats. When it was originally supposed to be an anthology of horror films of different varieties. But said it before a million times, Halloween 3 is my favorite. And I watched it again, and I'm going to do a little how many days till Halloween, and then just plug it all over the place and share my cartoons with people. I regret to inform anybody there's no aliens or Bigfoot in this one. This is probably a first. I get reprimanded from Dave. I'm not going to get my monthly slice of pizza from Dave now. If anybody wants to know, I draw cartoons for Dave, and he pays me one slice of pizza per month. It was also Canadian Thanksgivings this weekend. So, happy Thanksgiving to all of the Canadians listening in. That includes myself. Happy Thanksgiving there, Dirty Filth. You know, one of these days, we'll have some kind of day when the aliens show up, and it won't be quite Thanksgiving, but maybe at least my gas bill will go down a little bit. All right. Basically, I'm just going to draw this happy little Halloween 3 jack-o'-lantern. And if you haven't watched it before, I would suggest watching Halloween 3. There's nothing to do with Michael Myers. It's one of the best in the entire series. The cat fuzz on there again. Inevitable. And yeah, it's quite interesting for an older style horror movie. Plus, it's got Tom Atkins. If it's got Tom Atkins, you can't go wrong. It's impossible. So, for some of our younger listeners, Tom Atkins is a great actor, and he knocked it out of the park in every single film he's ever been in. So. And oddly enough, my internet somehow went to some kind of elevator music, so this is great. I'm just drawing Halloween pumpkin thing with some elevator music in the background. Let's color in that date sheet up here. I believe it's 18 days till Halloween, if I remember correctly. Oh, look at that, more cat hair. That's an inevitable thing when you live with sprogs. Oh, wait, there's the gremlin again. Hello, buddy boy. He doesn't know if he's coming up or what he's doing. He's orange, so come on. Yeah, well, he's
How's the
maybe
gargoyle?
one. The gargoyle is curled up on the side of the window here, getting the last little bit of that October air in.
Yeah. Are you getting ready to lock the windows soon?
For the most part, yes. Yeah, there's that gremlin. All right, Dave, I'm going to go no swearing mode.
Are you down to single digits?
Yes, it was 10
Yeah.
today.
I think we topped out at like 4 degrees today.
Gruesome.
Yeah.
You need
Most
to
of the
come
time
down
I'm
to San Antonio, Dave.
1. All right, Dirty Phil, thank you. And do us a favor before you leave, tell everybody where they could find your new book.
Just type in Cryptid Cartoons on Amazon. It'll be by Klaus Meigner. Volume 1 and 2. Buy one for yourself and one for your mom. And make sure you call your mom tonight and tell you love her.
Right on. Thank you tonight so far to UAP Thompson and Kitty Caddywhack for the great super chats. We greatly appreciate your love and support of Spaced Out Radio. If you haven't yet and you're brand new here, do us a favor, hit subscribe, ring that bell. We are here 7 days a week. And here we go with hour number 2. Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Kakotopia. Kakotopia is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's get to our guest tonight. Tom Whitmore is formerly of the MUFON Board of Directors, retiring in 2022. He is now an independent researcher looking into the MJ-12 documents, and he's here to talk some UFOs tonight. And Tom, we always appreciate when you take time for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave, and I'm having a lot of fun tonight. It's good to be here.
We're always having fun with you, my friend. We really are. Tom, we talked a little bit about disclosure on the back end of the last half hour of the show. And moving forward, where do you see this subject going? Where do you want it to go, and what's the reality of it?
I know where I want it to go, but I'm a pessimist. And I'm afraid, I suspect that this will fade away over time, because of the stonewalling of the executive branch. And the legislative branch and the executive branch are separate parts of the government. They have separate responsibilities. And the executive branch can simply just not supply information that the legislative branch wants. Now, having said that, I think we have a lot of reason to hope in that the last time there were government hearings on the legislative side was in the 1960s. And a lot of the activity that occurred during the 1980s by Bill Moore and the so-called aviary was in the hope that they could incite a government or legislative investigations into the UFO reality, because they believe that the executive branch was covertly and covering up the UFO reality, and they hoped that they could get something going in the Congress, and that didn't happen, and that was 40 years ago. And I think we we need to be thankful in a way, because since 2022, there have been 6 congressional hearings. There was one in May of 2022 in the House, in April of 2023 in the Senate, in July of 2023 in the House, in November 2024 in the House, November 2024 in the Senate, and September this year, 2025 in the House. That's 6 hearings when there hasn't been a hearing since the 1960s. So I think we can be thankful for that. But is it going to continue? Are the House and the Senate people going to realize that the executive offices just aren't going to cooperate?
Do you think that this subject was pretty much dead in the water the minute politics got involved?
That is a consideration, because for the legislators, I think the political dynamics are much more relevant than even on the executive side, because there's the so-called deep state, and those are the people that remain no matter who's in office. They're the career professionals, the career technocrats within the Department of Defense and within the intelligence agencies and within the corporate sphere. But on the legislative side, the people in the House have to worry about getting reelected every 2 years, and the Senate does not have quite that much pressure, but they have to take into consideration the effect that getting too involved in UFOs might have. And I think most Congress people don't want to be involved with the UFO subject. And that's where the political side comes in. They have to worry about getting reelected, and they don't want to be ridiculed with a subject that has been that's been inclined to be viewed by the public as marginal.
The reason why I asked that, Tom, is because we see people like Congress people, Tim Burchett, Anna Paulina Luna with her conspiracy club. Nancy Mace has been a part of it. Christian Gillibrand has been a part of it from the Senate. Marco Rubio was even a part of it right at the beginning. But we see these people talking very tough that there is this major secret that needs to come out, yet they're not really talking publicly with the people who really would be in the know, so to speak. If you were on that conspiracy club and wanting to hold hearings, who would be your top 4 that you would want to interview for information that could really help this case, rather than another person who served, who saw a UFO while on a base?
Yeah. Well, part of the problem is we don't know who those people are because they haven't come forward publicly. But some logical people would be some former national security directors, former CIA directors, National Reconnaissance Office, Defense Intelligence Agency. There are something like 16 different intelligence agencies associated with the U.S. government now. But those are some of the obvious ones. And it wouldn't hurt to get some testimony from Admiral Wilson of the famous Admiral Wilson interview. And he won't like me saying that, but I think that he knows something, or he at least found out something. But as for other people that have direct knowledge, that have worked on these so-called legacy programs and reverse engineering programs, we don't necessarily know who they are. So I can't really give you any other names than some of the obvious ideas, like the directors of the NSA, the DIA, the CIA, the National Security Council, and so on and so forth.
So you make a lot of sense with Admiral Wilson or Eric Davis. Both of these people have had the Wilson Davis memos and notes put in as evidence to this in the first hearings that they ever had on this. And the fact that neither of those two have been called to testify is kind of shocking, in my opinion. What about yours?
I don't know about Eric Davis. Now I can understand Admiral Wilson, because for people that aren't familiar with it, it arose because Eric Davis was able to interview Admiral Wilson and have a confidential conversation with him. And Eric Davis wrote up his notes of the conversation, and he distributed those notes to other people that were associated with Robert Bigelow of NIDS. And it was never intended to become public. What happened was a famous astronaut, Edgar Mitchell, had a copy in his files. And when Edgar Mitchell passed away, a friend of his who was a space enthusiast got a hold of some of Edgar Mitchell's files and took them home with him. And this person happens to be an Australian in Australia. And an Australian researcher who I know and I consider to be a friend was able to go through the files, and he recovered that transcript of the interview between Eric Davis and Admiral Wilson. And then he tried to pass it on to Grant Cameron, but anyway, it ended up on the internet, and it ended up becoming public. It was never intended to become public in the first place, but it did. And Admiral Wilson specifically said in the interview, he said, look, if this ever becomes public, I'll deny it. And he has denied it. So it would be awkward for the Congress to call him to testify unless he was willing. And I'm not sure it would be fair to call him to testify to be subpoenaed to do so. I don't know if that would be fair to him.
But if you want to get answers, sometimes you have to follow through on threats. And the threat of being subpoenaed might be something that is warranted for a situation like this. And that's what also makes me wonder, since they're not really doing that, then to me, this is just a big charade of what is going on. It reminds me of the 2001, so-called UFO hearings that took place, that Dr. Stephen Greer put on, where, you had these people come out, but nothing was really brought forward. There was no information given. It was just a big showpiece. And isn't that what maybe this conspiracy club is doing right now, is just a big showcase?
In some ways it is, but I beg to differ with the attitude that some people have come out that, for example, Representative Luna is not doing enough to bring forward disclosure. In fact, one journalist even called her a liar. I take the opposite view. I think that we should work with them and be supportive of any and all Congress people that are willing to pursue this subject. It's been far too difficult to get any congressional interest at all for, since the 1960s, actually since 1947. And now we do have some Congress people that are interested and are trying to have hearings. And just because a legislator wants to have UFO hearings, it may be difficult for that person to get those hearings going, because they have to work with the leadership in the House and the leadership in the Senate. And if the Speaker of the House or whoever the people in authority are in the legislature, unless they agree to it and allow it, they may not be able to get hearings. So I believe that we should work with and be supportive of any and all congressional people, both on the House and the Senate side, that are willing to delve into this disclosure issue.
And I understand and would completely agree with that if they were actually talking to people of relevancy. When Mike Gold came out and spoke about NASA, he wasn't interested in talking about UFOs. He was interested in talking about getting NASA more funding. They didn't even bring up the farce of a report that NASA had put out. They did, Lou Elizondo was there, and basically was saying, well, if you want that information, you got to read my book. It was like a part of his book of the month club. Now I'm being a little bit harsh when I say that on both ends, but that was the reality to it. If you want answers, why wouldn't you go to the people who have answers rather than the people who haven't?
Well, but here's what the thing is, Dave, as far as I can tell. We don't know what conversations representatives and senators are having behind the scenes. We might get some indications and we might hear some rumors, but they're pretty tight-lipped. And this one journalist that I'm referring to, who will, scout the halls and approach them in the halls and try to get comments, the legislators are pretty tight-lipped about what they're doing behind the scenes. They have to be careful to a certain extent because they don't want information getting out that either might embarrass them or might jeopardize their ability to have a hearing. So, it is a game and it is politics, and it's not everything that we've hoped for. And I do believe that the executive branch is stonewalling and doing everything they can from to not to lose control of the narrative. And yes, it is a show, and there are shenanigans and games, but at least we have something, and at least we have some congressional people that are willing to try to have hearings. And I just believe that we should be supportive of them and of anyone else that will testify. I mean, maybe Lou Elizondo is not everything that we've hoped for, but I think that we should be supportive of Lou Elizondo. I personally I've shaken his hand. I've looked him in the eye. I've made comments to him. I've met him in meetings, and I believe that he's an honorable person and that he's honestly trying to bring disclosure forward. But he's also cagey about what he will talk about and reveal, because these guys have to be careful. If they reveal any classified information, they could get in trouble.
Very true. Would you do that over a beer in his new bar?
Well, I'd be drinking Diet Coke, but yeah, I would. I quit drinking many, many, many years ago. That's why I'm still here.
True that. The idea behind it, though, of kind of, you're right. We don't know what is happening behind the scenes. Then why go public with it? If you can't talk about it publicly, why go public? Why lead the public into temptation? Biblically, we're not even supposed to lead people into temptation, yet this is exactly with what they're doing.
I think that we have to remember that there are the UFO, there's the UFO lobby, the UFO believers, the enthusiasts like me, which you have correctly pointed out is a small segment of the population. And then there's everyone else. And so we UFO people, we follow each and every little development in this whole disclosure issue. And we become hopeful, and we become dissatisfied, and we become discouraged, and so on and so forth. The general public isn't even following this. I don't think they even care.
I would agree with you on that. I don't think the general public cares at all. They otherwise they would have taken it up a little bit more. I really do. But I do know this, that I'm going to be asking us some of these same questions in a few days' time when we interview Matt Laszlo from Askapol, who's been a diligent researcher of the UFO subject in Washington, D.C. And I think that will be quite a learned experience to have him on the air to see what is really going on publicly with this subject. We got about 5 minutes to go before we need to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Tom Whitmore is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Tom, MJ-12, this is a love and a passion for you in researching this subject. You've been doing it now for a number of years. You've you've kind of made it your personal mantra to learn about this. For people who don't know what Majestic 12 was, give us a quick explanation.
Majestic 12, the idea of Majestic 12 arises out of certain documents that were introduced into the UFO public and into the larger public, allegedly revealing that there had been a recovery of a UFO in Roswell in 1947, and that a select committee of scientists, government people, was formed to study the problem, and that they worked in complete, total secrecy regarding the problem, and essentially managed the UFO problem since 1947. It was comprised of 12 people, thus MJ-12. And these documents that came out in the 1980s introduced this whole concept. Now, the documents themselves are questionable. They are not authentic government issued documents. For example, if you get a document from the National Archives, it has a stamp on it that it's been declassified and it has been released officially. None of the MJ-12 documents are like that. But they might point towards certain things that may be true. And there were a number of documents, like I've mentioned, the Aquarius Telex, the Carter briefing document, the Eisenhower briefing document, the Truman Forrestal memo, and the Cutler Twining memo. Those all came out in the 80s, and that introduced this whole idea of MJ-12, a secret committee of government scientists, government military, and government people that managed the UFO problem after the recovery of a UFO in 1947.
Why is it important to the UFO world today?
Well, I love UFO history. I'm a history guy, even though I don't have a degree in history, and I don't walk around saying that I'm a historian. But I love UFO history, and I feel like I do understand some perspective. And the thing that has gotten to me, Dave, is the whole idea that a government agency would go to the trouble to create these kind of documents and introduce them into the UFO community. That to me is fascinating. Why? Why are they doing that? And why are they messing with the UFO community in that way? And I've seen enough evidence to satisfy me that something has been going on in terms of certain government agencies wanting to mess around with the UFO community. I live and breathe this stuff.
I think we all kind of live and breathe that. The history of it all is pretty fantastic. And to me, MJ-12 sits in that, what I like to call the UFO Pandora's box, that is sitting somewhere in the middle of the Pentagon. And I just want to, make notice, not to pat my own back or anything, but I was using the term UFO Pandora's box way before Chris Mellon said it about 2 years ago. So I just want to clarify that I didn't steal it from him. But I believe there is this UFO Pandora's box sitting in the Pentagon somewhere that includes what happened at Roswell, that includes MJ-12, that includes all of these different crash sites, retrievals, situations of whether or not Bob Lazar worked at Area 51, whether or not Eisenhower did or did not meet extraterrestrials at an Air Force base trading humans for technology. I think in the road to disclosure, I think they are trying to protect that Pandora's box from ever being exposed. 30-second answer on that, Tom.
Yeah, they sure are, because think of the Pandora's box myth. I think it's an old Greek myth. But once Pandora opened the box, the demons came out, and once they came out, you can't put them back in, and you lose control of the situation. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. You can't unring the bell. And so, you have to keep a lid on Pandora's box. And I think that is what has been done. if there was a saucer recovered in 1947, I think that is what has been done since then. I call it a pattern of denial and deception, and it's still going on to this day.
Well, we're going to go in the next half hour. We're going to talk a little bit about MJ-12. We're also going to get into some audience questions with Tom Whitmore next.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right, we're clear.
Okay.
Man, this is flying on by.
It sure is. I hope I'm answering your questions.
You're doing fantastic. Absolutely fantastic, as per usual, bud.
I could talk for hours.
Me too.
You said you were out in the forest today?
I was out in the forest.
Just
I'm still a little stunned over that giant black bear I saw. Yes, it was a black bear, not a Sasquatch.
you guys go out in the forest just to hang out, or?
Yeah, my dad has never seen a giant bull moose, but we're too far into the hunting season now to have them come out in the middle of the day. So
you have to be careful around them too.
Oh yeah, moose actually kill more people than bears annually.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they are an angry soul in an awkward body.
Yes, they sure are. Is it where you live? Is it really densely forested?
Yes.
Oh, that's nice. Because
Yeah.
that's how I imagine British Columbia being, is a lot of forest.
It's very forested up here. It's like for me to get into the deep forest is probably a 15-minute drive away.
Yeah.
It happens quick.
How did you end up living there, Dave? I mean, where you live now?
How did I move up here?
Yeah.
Interesting story. During my daytime career, I was working at a place where I was getting bullied pretty heavily by ownership. I was in a situation where son was taking over from dad, and son was an arrogant cuss, to say the least. And I got to the point where I started having panic attacks and really bad anxiety and depression. And it started to affect my health, and decided one day to throw a dart at a dartboard. And I remember being up here a couple of times with my dad going fishing when I was a kid, and really liked the fact of living in a small town. It intrigued me. So talked to a mentor of mine in my field, and he's like, wouldn't you know that I'm on my way to that town right now? And I called him. And so it was kind of like it was meant to be.
Okay.
But I've learned a lot about myself being up here. I think I'm a better person living up here than I was down near the Vancouver area. I'm a happier person. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Do you hunt? Do you hunt?
Yeah. I started hunting last year.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. I still am extremely green about that, about hunting. I don't I have my deer tags, but I don't see myself taking a deer because number one, I don't know how to clean it. But number two, I really like deer. I really I love it when they're in my yard. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I don't see myself taking a deer or a bear because I really like black bears too. But you know, is what it is. I normally go hunting for grouse because I've equated them to like wild chickens. So 10 seconds here, Tom. Thank you, Kitty, Thompson, Nicole, JSCO, and Shaq for the super chats. Thank you to our new subscribers. Here we go. Here we go with the second half of Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. We greatly appreciate you tuning us on in and enjoying tonight's show on UFOs with Tom Whitmore. We want to remind all of you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, our archives are always free on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Final time tonight, Tom Whitmore is here. He is researching MJ-12, Majestic 12. Was it real? Was it not, Tom? This is still the great debate on whether or not MJ-12 truly existed. Many believe it was just a farce, yet you don't.
You could certainly make a case for that. You could make a case. Well, that it's an either or question. Either MJ-12 existed or it didn't. If it existed, it either had something to do with UFOs or it didn't. And it's possible that there was an MJ-12 that didn't have anything to do with UFOs. Maybe it had something to do with technological development in another area, in like I mentioned, the whole question of nuclear warfare, radar, communications, all kinds of technological things. Now, in looking at the list of the MJ-12 members, it seems that if it wasn't UFOs, that the development of a high altitude spy craft would be something that the people that are on the list, it might make sense for them to be concerned with that. But the problem is, in 1947, that was way before we had even the first U-2. The first U-2 aircraft didn't come into play, I think, until 1955 or so. So that's 8 long years from 1947. One person has asserted that MJ-12 had something to do with continuity of government, and continuity of government is really related to, again, nuclear war and being able to maintain the government's functions, possibly underground inside a mountain in case of nuclear war. But when I look at the list of the alleged MJ-12 members, I just don't think that fits. I mean, why would you need an astronomer like Donald Menzel concerned with continuity of government? So there are various ways to look at it. I do think that if the government acquired a saucer or one or more saucers over the years, that there's a whole matrix of government agencies. And you have the National Security Council, and you have the Defense Department, and then all of these other agencies in the executive branch. And I think there may have been a matrix of people that were read in on various levels of the problem. But somewhere, and assuming that it's true, if we assume that it's true that there was a UFO or more than one UFO recovered, that somewhere in there, some group had to have been able to put it all together and know, everything that the government does know about it. And that's where you get into the question of, is there an MJ-12 or something like it? Now, in the rumor mill and just talk on the street, on the UFO street, that if there was an MJ-12, the name of it has changed over the years. I remember back in the 1990s, people were talking about COM-12. I've heard Zenith mentioned, and I've heard a couple of other names. So, and they do seem to be associated with astronomical type things like zodiac and zenith and that kind of a thing. And I do think that if this problem exists, like I think it does, there are certain people that are read in and know quite a bit, probably one or more people in the National Security Council. And plausible deniability comes into play because if the president, even though he probably can't be refused the information if he demands it, he's actually better off if he's not read in, because then he can honestly say that he doesn't know. And that provides plausible deniability. And that is an important principle in government administration.
We've seen this happen before, Tom, where many of these projects that allege to be around UFOs have their name changed. And the reason why is it is for deniability. It's like when Immaculate Constellation came out through Michael Schellenberger and Jeremy Corbell. In talking to a couple people that I know who worked on the dark black ops side of things, they said, look, they can deny that program all they want, because by the time something like that hits public, they've already changed the name to it. They've already changed the name, so that way they have complete deniability. What do you mean? There's nothing about Immaculate Constellation or maybe even MJ-12 or Majestic 12, because they changed the name to it and it gives them deniability. Do you think that maybe happened with Majestic 12?
Well, sure. And the government, the military in particular, is constantly reorganizing, and they're shifting responsibilities and tasks around from one group to another, and they're renaming this and they're renaming that. And I almost wonder if they do that on purpose to keep our adversaries off base and to keep the public off base. And if you take any particular military function within that matrix, if you go back in the history, you'll see the name change and the nomenclature change a number of times over a fairly 10, 20, 30 years. It will change, it will morph, it will evolve. And this I think is a reality of the situation. And here's another thing, Dave. If you ask a question of someone in the know, you have to ask it exactly correctly, or they can say, well, you're wrong, or it doesn't exist, unless you get the nomenclature exact.
Through FOIA, correct?
Through FOIA, or if you have some kind of an inside contact. And Bill Moore ran into that, I think, that certain people would answer certain questions if you ask the questions in a certain way, and you had to ask it in the right way, and it had to be exactly correct in the way the question was asked.
Right. So how is it, or how would you be able to get that deep information about MJ-12 if it allegedly does no longer exist?
There's the rumor mill. There are problems in my research, and when I finally finish this and I write the introduction, I mean, I'm trying to be straightforward, because there are problems in researching something like this. And For example, a lot of what I'm studying happened 40 years ago. Some of the sources, some of the really key sources now are deceased. Other people won't cooperate or they're unavailable. There are a few that are still active. And I know that this is related to classified information, one way or another, whether it has to do with recovered UFOs or not. This whole business of one or more government agencies interacting with UFO researchers and UFO groups is, if you're talking about the government files that are related to that, it's still classified. I filed an FOIA several months ago based on what I believed was a correct project name, a correct operational name, and the answer I got back was that's still classified, and we can neither confirm nor deny this. Well, what does that tell you? But the information is properly classified. So I know that things related to this, to the MJ-12 controversy, are classified, even though MJ-12 possibly never existed or may have possibly had nothing to do with UFOs.
What's your thoughts on the Aurora spy plane?
I think that it existed and it was tested, it was used, and maybe it was discontinued. It just got to be too difficult to operate. Planes like that have to use, will allegedly use a very special kind of fuel, and there are particular problems associated with it. And when you're traveling that fast, there's a lot of friction in the atmosphere, going in and out of the atmosphere. And there are really serious, substantial technical problems. And I do think it was tested and I think it was used a certain amount, but then I think it may have been discontinued in terms of what we think Aurora was. Now, I don't know what they're doing now or what they have now.
Do you think that was tied at all to MJ-12?
It could be. It could be that part of the function of a group like MJ-12. And I mean, AFOSI, the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, part of their responsibility is maintaining security around these classified programs that are being run by the Air Force. And so you have security, which is telling people to shut up and not talk about it, and they sign security oaths and they sign non-disclosure agreements and all this. But they also create deception programs, and they even put out disinformation. So yeah, the answer is yes.
I never knew that would have been tied to it. Interesting. All right, let's get to some audience questions. T-Bone is asking, what is your opinion of people who are researching this project, like Ross Coulthard?
I know Ross. I don't talk to him often, but I think he's a good man. I think he's sincere. He got the UFO bug, and he's a journalist at heart, and I think that he works out of the journalistic mindset of, we got to get the big story. We got to go out and get the big story. And I think he's constantly trying to do that. And sometimes journalists, not just Ross Coulthard, but other journalists, they'll hype up their headlines and their stories, to get that on the air. But I think he's a good man, and I think he's searching after truth, as all of us are.
All right, another audience question here. Derek is asking, why did different superpowers of the world stop testing atomic weapons, in your opinion?
I think they learned enough about how the weapons operate, how they work, that it wasn't necessary to do any more testing. There had been testing underground in the U.S. for years afterwards. There was a certain amount of naivety about nuclear radiation after the bombs came out, and they were setting these bombs off in Nevada and setting huge bombs off out in the Pacific. All this radiation and fallout was going into the atmosphere, and it was crazy when you consider all of the nuclear weapons that have been detonated. And it just makes common sense to stop doing that. Now, having said that, there are certain countries that want to have nuclear weapons too, and they're going to test them one way or another. And it's interesting to note that Robert Oppenheimer recommended that they simply run models of detonations rather than actual nuclear detonations. And Robert Oppenheimer had said that the atom bomb is shit, and it's just it creates more problems than it solves.
Moving on to another question, let's go over to Jules here, who is asking, what do you think the repercussions would be for false whistleblowing?
I don't think the Congress people would go to the trouble of trying to make a referral to the Justice Department for a false whistleblower unless it was so egregious that it caused too many people too many problems. And it's kind of like police work. You could get in trouble for filing a false police report, something like that. But as far as these false whistleblowers go, I think it's just an annoyance.
All right. One of your favorites and my favorites. Let's go to Katie Page. Do you think the secrecy around UFOs is more about technology or the phenomena itself?
Well, first of all, I want to give a shout out to Katie, and I want to give a shout out to Catherine, my friend, and I want to give a shout out to Nicole, all my friends. And as far as about secrecy around UFOs, I think it's about both. Now, the technology is alleged. We have to believe without proof or even direct evidence that the government or private industry is in possession of the technology. But as far as the phenomenon goes, there have been far too many sightings and reports over the last 80 years to just ignore it and say that UFOs don't exist. And with all the technology that the US government has within the military and the intelligence agencies, their ability to collect data, I think there's a lot of it is about that. So I think it's about both.
Jules is asking, do you think the parastrangeness exhibited by the phenomena is abilities possessed by beings or manufactured technology of quantum mechanical engineering?
I think we'd have to be sitting in a room with the technology in front of us with people that are smart enough to figure out something about it. And we've basically heard two things. One line is they can't figure anything out. They haven't made any progress with it. And then the other rumor is, we've got our own craft going into the space and going to the moon and going to Mars and all this. And they've known how to operate it for a long time. As far as quantum mechanical engineering, quantum is a popular term in the UFO community, and I think that very few people in the UFO community understand what quantum is about. I certainly don't.
Let's go to Ramona. The Pentagon already admitted that the UFO phenomena exists. Isn't this disclosure?
Well, if you want to think that way, I mean, yeah, you can find one person made some remark on Fox News or something like that, but that's different than someone holding a press conference and making an announcement and backing it up with evidence, with charts, photographs, documents, briefing papers, so on and so forth. Just because some former government official makes an offhand remark saying that, that he or she believes that the UFO phenomenon is real, I mean, that's fine. I'm not against it, but I don't consider that to be official disclosure.
All right, let's go to Tony here. I watched the film of Contact last night. I wondered if the Brazilian authorities and ESA are subject to FOIA. I don't think Tom would know that, but every government is subject to FOIA. You have to read their constitution. All right. I do have a question from Nicole. Do you think the false whistleblowers are possible counterintelligence operations that have fooled these sources, Tom?
Some of them could be. Some of them could be. And there is a function within the Air Force, at least, and maybe some of the other military branches, but they have people that are, they may be actors, they may be con men, they may be just weird, that they employ for various covert purposes. And now I'm not saying that that proves that they're putting false people over to the legislative branch, but I don't think you can eliminate that possibility. Like I've said, I think that the DOD and the executive branch is doing everything they can to control the narrative and to keep a lid on this.
We got 3 minutes to go, Tom. And obviously, this is a major story that will continue to develop, at least in our world. Where does it go? Say the next couple of months before the end of 2025. What do you see happening?
I think for a really truly serious investigation, like with a special counsel type or special prosecutor type, that there has to be political advantage on the legislative side. Because if you look at Watergate, the Democrats didn't like Nixon. And when Watergate came along, they were able to use that to force Nixon out of office. And all of the Watergate investigations were basically politically motivated because it gave the Democrats a political advantage. I'm not seeing any way that any political party at this point would gain any political advantage by getting into a really truly serious UFO investigation with special counsel and special prosecutor types, subpoenaing people, and even possibly other people being prosecuted out of it. I just don't see that right now. I'm sorry, it's not because I don't want disclosure. I want disclosure as badly as anybody out there, but I'm also a little bit of a pessimist.
I think we're all a little bit of a pessimist when it comes to this right now, to be blunt. It's very tough for any of us really to be able to handle what is going on. It's hard to see the positive side of this anymore. It really is. There's the romantic side, Tom, where we all want to be able to say, hey, we participated in this. We were able to help bring this out. But then there's a reality side to it that I don't think many of us fully understand because the real story of it has never been told.
That's right. And even on another live stream tonight, Lou Elizondo showed up on another live stream, and he said that there really is a whole lot going on behind the scenes and that he expects some developments to arise in the future. I hope that he's right. And I do think there's quite a bit going on behind the scenes. The question is, will any of it become public? I can't answer that.
Well, neither can I. We'll just have to wait and see, my friend.
Yes, we will.
Tom Whitmore, tell everybody where they could get a hold of you.
I have a blog on WordPress. It's Tom Whitmore blog. That's all one word. tomwhitmoreblog.wordpress.com.
Tom Whitmore blog at wordpress.com. Coming up next in hour 3, we have Swamp Dweller, then the Wizard.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
Good job tonight, Tom. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. I
you have
appreciate
fun?
you having me on your show.
Anytime you want to come on, you know that. That's why you're the man.
Okay. I do want to keep in touch.
Of course. We'll
Yeah,
call you soon.
Okay.
All right, brother. You take
Okay.
care.
Good night.
Good night. Tom Whitmore, everybody. Uncle Tommy Whitmore. He'll be in Vegas for our fan event next May. So make sure if you want to hang out with Sweet Tommy, you come out to Vegas with us. He'll be there. All right, I'll be right back. All right, I am back. Let's bring in the wizard. What do you say, wizard?
What do you say, Dave?
Living the dream, my man. Living the dream.
I hear you, man.
You know? Spent some nice time out in the forest today.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Out at the site?
No, won't go there without anybody. Just too dangerous there.
Bears?
Did see a monster black bear there, though. Holy cow, he was big. He was about 300 yards away from us. Literally one of the biggest bears I've ever seen.
Yeah. Funny story. I was on my honeymoon.
Hold that thought. We'll get to it when we return. Keep that thought, though. Here we go. Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott, and we are hanging on out with our good friends like you, tuning us in each and every night. We appreciate that. Hey, we want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire. Check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Tacotopia. Tacotopia is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's head to the swamp.
Hello and welcome to Spaced Out Radio's Swamp. I'm Swamp Dweller, and tonight I'm going to take you on a mystic journey of the unknown, sharing tales of monsters, legends, and nightmares. Welcome to the Spaced Out Radio Swamp.
For this next case, we need to travel back to 1992 in the city of Columbia, South Carolina. Columbia is a rather large city with an estimated population of around 132,000 people. Columbia is also the state capital, is in the center of the Columbia metropolitan area, which boasts upwards of 850,000 residents. It is safe to say in an area with so many people living their lives, it is no doubt that some may go missing in broad daylight. Unfortunately for Dale Dinwiddie, she would be one of the many who seemingly vanish in a crowd of people. On September 23, 1992, Dale and a group of her friends were attending a U2 concert. For those who are not aware or may not know, or were born after 2000, U2 was an Irish rock band from the mid-70s. The show was happening at the ever-buzzing Williams-Brice Stadium, home to the South Carolina Gamecocks college football games. This stadium currently holds over 80,000 people, but in 1992 it had the capacity to sit around 73,000. Still a lot of people. The concert went on until about 11:15 p.m. Then Dale and her friends decided to head toward the 5 Points area of Columbia. They went to a popular nightclub in the area at the time named Jungle Jim's. It is rather unclear what happened that night, as sometime during the hour and a half they were there, Dale would get separated from her group of friends. Around 1 a.m. on September 24th, the group left the club and assumed Dale had called her parents or had gotten a ride home. Sadly, this was not the reality of the situation. Dale was still in the nightclub, unaware her friends had left without her. Dale could be seen on surveillance footage asking a bouncer if they had seen her friends. Sometime around 1:30 a.m., she stopped talking with the bouncer and was seen walking north on Hardin Street. Consequently, Dale has never been seen or heard from again. Dale Dinwiddie is a Caucasian female with brown hair and brown eyes. She was 23 at the time of her disappearance and weighed approximately 96 to 100 pounds and was about 5 feet tall. She was last seen wearing a forest green sweatshirt, a blue nylon LL Bean jacket tied around her waist, faded blue jeans, and sneakers. Now I realize there is not a ton of information behind this case, but that is exactly why I chose to cover this one, as I feel there is so much being left out or kept from the public. There have been multiple theories thrown around as what happened to Dale Dinwiddie, the most popular theory being, well, abduction or murder. This is the primary theory that most investigators have gotten behind. Some people close to the story insist Dale had to have been taken by someone who knew her, or potentially a stalker or stranger who had been following her for some time. Many have stated that it would be very unlikely for Dale to enter a stranger's vehicle on her own accord, leaving many to think she was familiar with whoever she got in the vehicle with. It does look like the lack of clues in this case indicate Dale's disappearance was likely a carefully planned event. Investigators have gone on record to say, anyone who kidnapped her on impulse would most likely have been sloppy, leaving behind clues. To me, this is not necessarily a solid argument, as with a lack of witnesses, we clearly have a lack of clues, which does not mean the potential abduction was planned or unplanned at all. The absence of evidence does not mean the evidence of absence. I am unsure of where I lean in this case, but I can say there have been a few suspects over the years. A popular suspect who was investigated was a man named Ronaldo Javier Rivera. He confessed to killing 4 women in Georgia and is suspected to have been behind many more. What made Rivera a solid suspect was that he was a violent killer who had lived in the area at the time Dale disappeared. He was even attending the University of South Carolina in 1992. The university is not terribly far from the 5 Points area Dale was last seen. Outside of the possibility of him being in the area, though, no evidence has ever been found linking him to the crime. At the end of the day, Dale and her family deserve answers and closure. Over the years, investigators have followed up on thousands of tips, many of which are somewhat useful, but there are quite a few that border on ridiculous. Many properties have been searched after reports of foul odors and deer bones were dug up. Ground-penetrating radar, scent dogs, and more have all been dispatched and used to aid officials. In lighter news, Dale's dental records and DNA are on record. If her remains are ever found, she will likely be identified. Even though odds are slim that this case will be solved, I see no reason to not share this in hopes of someone possibly knowing something. There is still a $20,000 reward for anyone with information that solves this case. If you, or anyone you may know, have any information regarding to Dale Dinwiddie's whereabouts, please call the Columbia Police Department at 803-545-3500.
Thank you, Swamp Dweller, for another creepy story. If you want more just like that, head on over to his YouTube channel, Swamp Dweller. Hit subscribe, ring that bell, and you get thousands right there to choose from. It's time for the UFO Wizard. The UFO Wizard returns for another week here on Spaced Out Radio. Josh Rutledge, it is always great to have you here, my friend. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Dave. I'm pretty sure when I get together with you guys, hopefully next year in Vegas, I'm going to have to play that song when I walk in to where everybody is. Just, let's have
I will make sure that happens.
Yeah.
I will totally make sure that happens. How about that?
Pipe it over the speakers in whatever hotel or whatever we're going to stay in. So
that would be amazing. Just amazing. Went hunting with my dad today.
Yeah.
And we're driving down the logging roads. Literally see one of the biggest black bears I have ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
We were about 300 yards away, and we're just cruising along at maybe 4 or 5 miles an hour. And all of a sudden I look straight ahead and I'm like, holy cow, What is that? Is that a cow? Is that a horse? No, it was a giant black bear, man.
Hmm.
And this thing was looking at us, and we were looking at it, and we're looking. I said, Dad, get your camera out. And then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, screw you, humans. I'm out of here. Ran around the corner and then disappeared into the trees. Man, dude, there's something beautiful about when scenarios like that happen.
Yeah. So funny story. On my honeymoon, which was almost 20 years ago, we had gone to Gatlinburg, Tennessee, which is for some reason seems to be like the top honeymoon spot if you're get married in Kentucky or Tennessee or Indiana or Ohio. Anyways, it's a very pretty area in the Appalachian Mountains. We had driven up to Klingman's Dome, which is kind of a rock feature. You can walk up to the top of it and stuff, and it's really cool. You see the reason why they're called the Smoky Mountains, because there's like this mist, smoky, cloud stuff pouring over the top of the mountain. So we're coming back down, and there is a what I assume is a mama bear and 3 cubs that had clambered down one side. It was crossing the road and getting ready to go down the other side. So I come to a stop to let them go. My wife's like, "Get out and I'll take your picture." I'm like, I am not getting out and standing next to a mama bear and her 3. You want me to get mauled to death? So
Yeah, there are certain things you just don't do.
Yeah.
That is one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's and I bring it up all the time. And so like we were going somewhere the other day, and it was this really kind of dark and windy road, and it was kind of in the mountains and stuff. And so I said, what are you going to do if we like round a corner and Sasquatch is standing there? And she's like, well, I'm going to ask you to get out and I can take your picture. So
that's what you do. Not a black bear, a Sasquatch. Yes. But a bear of any kind, no, you just don't do it.
Especially not with cubs. Like it's, yeah. But anyways, so good camp, good hunting though. Did you bag anything?
Got a couple of grouse. That's what we were looking for.
I have no idea what that is.
It's like a wild chicken.
Okay.
About the size of a smaller size of a wild chicken.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
We have a lot of quail around here.
Like a quail. Yes.
Okay.
Except without the fancy feather.
Fancy little hoop thing on top.
Yeah.
Like the danglefish, but not as ugly.
That's pretty much it.
Okay.
Pretty much it. No, it was a good day. Anytime I get to spend with my dad, we had 5 hours just driving and chatting.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, my parents are coming out to visit us in December, and I'm looking forward to it. It's been a little over a year, maybe almost 2 years since I've seen my parents, so it'll be good.
Right on. Right on. You've been following up what's going on in the UFO world. What do you got for us tonight?
Yep. So start off with the Senate passed their version of the NDAA. There was absolutely no mention of UAP anything within their version, which, I think, people had hinted at the possibility of it not being there. So where, for those that may not be familiar with the process, I was not, I had to look it up. So from here, it goes to a special committee will get stood up to basically reconcile the House version and the Senate version. And then that'll produce the final version that then goes to the president to be signed. So one could only hope, because that committee will be made up of members of both the Senate and the House, that somebody will advocate to leave that, UAP disclosure protection information within that amendment within the final version. But I mean, we honestly can't start that process until and I don't want to get, we'll stay away from politics, but we can't start that process until the government shutdown ends, and we don't know when that's going to happen. So
are you surprised that there was no really inclination of UFO/UAP funding on it?
Not really. I mean, you look at like all the attention that this topic has gotten from U.S. Congress has been from House members. For whatever reason, the Senate just doesn't seem to care. So, well, I guess the very first hearing, I think Chuck Schumer was a part of that, and I think he's in the Senate side. So, I guess there's some interest, or maybe he just sponsored it because you had to have a ranking member in order to do so. I don't know, but yeah, it doesn't surprise me that it's out there. And honestly, it won't surprise me if it doesn't make it into the final version. There just seems to be a handful of people who really want to see the truth come out, and a vast majority who don't.
Why do you think there is still such holdback on this topic if it's been a great part of discussion within the governmental world for the last number of years?
It could be a matter of there are bigger fish to fry in someone's eyes, or it could be a combination of that and not giving the topic a sincere look. If you're a Senate member and you've not really followed along with any of the stuff that's been going on with the hearings or anything, maybe it flies against your religious beliefs. I guess there could be a number of different reasons why people on the Senate side have not given it kind of the time of day. As far as why these things continue to stall, I mean, I think it's this is a matter of does causation equal correlation? Does correlation equal causation? I said it backwards. Does the not including this new whistleblower protection act, as it relates to UAP within the final version, does that equate to people in the government taking a hard stance against new information being released? Or is it simply that they're ignorant on the topic, or ignorant on the need for the information to come out, or just generally don't care? It's not, we know, I'm sure, Dave, we know people who are intelligent people, but yet when it comes to this topic, they just don't care for whatever reason, just general people. So, I mean, I'm sure that there's a good segment of that represented within Congress.
I would agree with you on that. And the problem is the love of the military industrial complex has a lot more pull than the love of the UFO complex.
Yeah, don't say UFO complex. We're all going to get wrapped up in straitjackets and put in padded rooms. We all have the UFO complex, Dave. But no, I agree. Well, and I would say that if the recent whether you want to call them whistleblowers or not, but if the recent testimony that we've heard from people like Grush and others is true, then the government has been attempting to reverse engineer craft for a long time, and all of that is probably caught up in the military industrial complex. So the idea that somehow releasing this information will spawn new opportunities related to UFO UAP, I don't think is true, because they've always been there, just kept secret and hidden behind closed doors. So the only benefit, I think, in the government in bringing any of this stuff forward is if they want to basically outsource the research side of they've had them for 60 years and all they've gotten is this far, and they need to they want to crowdsource, basically, let's get science to help us figure this thing out. But I also think that they've been doing it this way for 60 years. I'm a process consultant in my day job, And one of the things we hear as process consultants a lot is, well, it's always been done this way. Well, my job is to come in and tell you why that's not a good idea to just keep doing it because it's always been done that way. But the government doesn't seem to really hold that same idea. They want to, it's always been done this way, and that's just the way it's going to be, and we're never going to change until someone comes along and makes us change.
This is the third year in a row this Schumer Rounds bill has been shut out or not whitewashed by people playing politics above them. It seemed going into this one that both Schumer and Rounds had stated that they didn't expect it to get further than it has in the past. It's like they just don't have the confidence that this is going to go through, but they're going to keep pushing through, which I can commend Schumer Rounds in doing. But at some point, is it going to just fall on deaf ears that they're even doing this? Or do you see a point maybe next year or the year after where they're just going to say, we're not even going to bother?
I don't know. I mean, you would think that what's the old adage? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. I mean, this is the third year. If it doesn't go through this year, I would imagine they've reached that definition of insanity. I mean, I would imagine most politicians probably would have abandoned it after being rejected 2 times in a row. So, I don't know. I honestly think that the people who were involved with these hearings have, like us, a vested interest in seeing the information. They either had experiences themselves or they have a close relative who has. And so, because of that personal investment, and not only from a political perspective, but just for their own personal investment, I think that's what's pushing it forward. They've developed the UFO complex, and they want to see this information come to light. And I would imagine, and probably this is true, if they've been into a skiff with any of these folks, they know far more than we know. And that knowing of what they know may be what is driving them to continue to push on the topic.
It's interesting to know what they know. That's the big thing. That's the $1 million question right now. What do they know?
Yeah, and I don't know that we'll ever know what they know. Simply because it's all, that's the other thing that's included in, the House version for this UAP stuff is not just protection for whistleblowers, but it's a need to really overhaul the classification process so that not everything that has any, U or an A or a P in the title or in the context gets lumped up as classified. So that's another piece is, in order for us to know what they know would have to be declassified to some level. So the only way that's going to happen, I think, is if this goes through and it gets, there's a real push or a requirement for them to look at and declassify documents. But, if you read the context too within the amendment, it says they have 25 years to declassify documents. Now, maybe that's because there's a crap ton of documents and it would take them that long to do it. I don't know. But I would hope that it would be a trickle, a slow release, if you will, of documents that have been declassified, with the 25-year mark being the end of, that declassification activity.
And on that note, Josh, we're going to get you to hold on right there. The UFO report with the wizard, Josh Rutledge, continues on Spaced Out Radio in the final half hour.
This is Spaced Out Radio and your host, Dave Scott.
All right, buddy, we're clear.
All right.
Mike Bothwell, how you doing? All right, let's go there.
Sorry, I'm gonna look up some of the wording from that amendment. There was a question, or someone was talking about it in the chat. Someone trying to get that from somebody.
About 3.5 minutes, buddy.
Okay. So I presented at Phoenix MUFON this past weekend.
Yeah, how'd that go? Tell me about it.
It was really good. We had around 65 to 70 people show up, so that's not bad. I'm actually tied with Mark D'Antonio. That's about how many people he has come through. So
nice.
And I was a little nervous, so I finished my slides early. But we ended up going to like almost 60 minutes for Q&A. It was fantastic discussion. Everybody was engaged. Was
wow.
Like asking questions left and right. Like there wasn't a time when I didn't finish answering one question that another person, 2, 3 people would shoot their hand up and have a question. So yeah, it was fantastic.
What'd you talk about?
I'm going to be putting a YouTube out on it, but it is my theory that somehow electromagnetic fields either created by UFO craft or used by UFO craft stimulate tangential phenomena to occur. So like when there's a UFO in the area, now all of a sudden we get kind of bleed through, like we get more Sasquatch reports, we get poltergeist reports, we get ghost sightings increased, stuff like that. And so it's looking at really the phenomena as a whole and not just singling in on just one specific aspect of the phenomena. And I get a lot of cool stuff, data, reports. I've thrown it all into Google Earth. I got it involves ley lines. I've got some ley line overlays in Google Earth, and I'm mapping reports in association to ley lines, and I'm calling these things convergences. So like there's the infield convergence where the infield poltergeist was also around the same time. There was humanoid sightings in Wales. There were fae or fairy sightings north of London. So again, it's just like there's somehow this is all related, and it seems to all these different reports also are in really close proximity to ley lines. So I think there's some connection there. So like I said, I'm going to basically put my presentation together out on YouTube in the next couple of days, and so people can see what my theories are.
All right, we got about 15 seconds. Thank you tonight to T-Bone, Shaq Filet, JSCO, Number One, Thompson, and Kitty Cattywhack for the super chats tonight. We greatly appreciate your love. And here we go with the final half hour, everybody. Final half hour is now underway on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you for tuning us in. We appreciate you loving us each and every night right here on the show. Hey, we want to remind all of you before we bring the wizard back that if you've missed most of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go. The UFO wizard, Josh Rutledge, with us once again. How you doing, my friend?
Again, Dave, doing just fantastic. Even though there's not like a lot of activity right now in the UFO world, it's still like there's enough floating around, and there's some teasers about some stuff that's supposedly coming by the end of the year. I don't know if you've seen that or not.
Well, what do you got for these teasers? What do you mean by this?
Yeah. So according to Ross Coulthart and another guy named Pavel Ibarra, they have it on good authority, word on the street, that Age of Disclosure will be on Prime Video in November, December of this year.
Wow. How do you feel about that?
I just hope that the wait will be worth it. They talked it up when it was premiered at the like in Texas or something at that convention. Everybody raved about it, I guess, and I just want to see it. I'm ready to see it. What I am worried about though is that most of the content within it has already basically come out via other means over the last year or so since they started talking about it. But yeah, I just want to see it, what it is and what it contains. And my brain finds patterns. That's one thing I'm really good at, and so I'm really interested to see specifically what people say and don't say, to see if what other linkages or connections that my brain might establish, that maybe other people haven't thought about yet or explored yet. So that's what I'm really looking forward to, is just an increase in information provided to me that I can then remember and file away for use at a later point.
Now, Age of Disclosure is a movie / documentary that was made a number of months ago. It was released, I believe it was at the Dallas, or some Texas, movie weekend, whatever they call those things, where they show a bunch of movies and documentaries. And
yeah, it was like a film festival or something.
Film festival. That's the words I'm looking for. It's late, man. We're in the final half hour of the show. So thank you for that. Brain has been working overload today, but it did have a great critical acclaim, and it had, I believe, over 30 people and government people coming out talking about how this was the next big frontier and that this is real and people need to start paying attention. And then for some reason, they just couldn't get anybody to pick it up. Not a single film industry company would pick up the film, which was kind of shocking, but kind of interesting at the same time.
Yeah, I know that. I know there was a few people that made offers. I think News Nation via Russ Coulthart made an offer to actually air it on News Nation. And I heard somebody else, I can't remember who, but somebody else with a pretty significant following made an offer to air it on their channel. I mean, obviously they would benefit from the views, I'm sure, but but yeah, I mean, it was really weird that, like you say, it got really good reviews from the people who saw it, but yet no one would pick it up. And what really, I think shocks me the most about that is that just about every major streaming platform has released their own version, if you will, of what this is. Maybe not to this extent with 34, senior U.S. officials going on record, but their own kind of disclosure-esque type documentary. So, I say maybe it's one or two things. Either A, they've got their own projects in the works, and to host this would be to undermine those other projects, or B, the folks that put it out, I can't remember who created it, but they may be making too high of demands of whoever's going to ultimately air it. I do know that from other folks that have tried to go through the process of getting stuff in like Prime Video and Netflix, it's a very intensive, long process to get things into the library on those two platforms. So maybe they've been trying or working on it for the past few months and just been kept quiet because they don't know when it's ever actually going to happen.
Here's the other thing about the video, and I have talked to critics about it. Okay, and they have basically said there's nothing new in this. It's the same information, the same talking heads that we are all used to put into one film. And I think if people do their homework on the subject, they're going to see these same faces saying the exact same thing. We don't know where they're from. We don't know how they're invading our airspace. This is a threat that we need to take seriously. Like, great, you're doing that. Wonderful. Will I watch the movie? Absolutely, I'll watch the movie. But are we going to get anything different?
So this is where we've talked about this before. This is a prime example of, in my opinion, this is not made for the UFO community. This is made for people who are either on the fence or just staunch non-believers, to try to get them to see the light, if you will. It'll be great. The community will watch it, and that'll help support its continued availability on whatever platform it's on. But it's really meant for, like I said, the general public who are on the fence. Here's 34 senior U.S. officials who are going on the record, who are convinced that the government has covered up the existence of non-human intelligence for 80 years. That is going to entice the on-the-fence people to watch it. And maybe that'll also entice them to then want to get involved and pressure people to reveal more information. I mean, ultimately, it is an opportunity to grow the UFO community. Like you and I, we've been steeping, in this topic for a long time. So for us, it probably is not going to contain anything new. But I bet you there's a good portion of your audience that would get something new out of it that they haven't heard or seen before.
Probably. And you're right. We often do forget that a lot of these movies are made for people who are not in this community. They are made to educate those outside of the community. And I think that brings up a very logical point. It really does. At some point, though, how many of these documentaries do we have? James Fox has made a couple.
Yeah.
Okay. Dan Farah, who made the Age of Disclosure, there's one. There are numerous documentaries over the last number of years. Dr. Stephen Greer's made 2 or 3.
Yeah.
That all say the same thing. Most of them using the same people.
Yep. And I think so I've got a really good friend who does channeling stuff for her community. She does it. She's actually been on your show quite a few times. Deb Shakti. I think
she's
Deb.
awesome.
Yeah. So when I first started doing similar things, channeling and stuff like that, and I was putting that content out, I was talking to her and I said, I'm concerned that what I'm putting out is just stuff that somebody's already said. And she came back and she said, well, if you look at it from let's say a frequency perspective, there will be people who resonate with me who didn't resonate with her. And there'll be people who resonate with the next person that didn't resonate with me or her. And so I think in that regard, it's a matter of saturation. If they can saturate enough with a lot of you're right, it is a lot of the same content or the same people saying the same things on different documentaries. But if they can get it out there enough from different people and different formats and different lengths and different, background music and special effects and so on and so forth, they're going to reach a broader audience of people. Even though it's the same content, it still is a saturation effort.
Do we not, though, at some point need to start bringing some sort of new information to the table, though?
Yeah, we do. And I honestly think that we will get some new information in this age of disclosure document or whatever. I can't speak now. Documentary. I think that, but I don't know that it'll be like obvious and in flashing lights. I think it'll be something where you have to listen. You have to maybe heard the same person give a testimony some other way, some other place, or appear on a podcast or appear on a radio show and talk about something. And then you hear them in documentary either contradicting themselves or presenting it in a slightly different way. And that's where I'm saying, like, you have to really listen. I think, in the hearing with Grush, there was more said by him not saying or answering questions than there was of him actually opening his mouth and saying answers. Like, everything that he said, I could talk to you about that in the skiff, should be treated as an affirmative in the response. So I think there's going to be stuff like that in the documentary, where it's either non-answers or half answers, but those non-answers or half answers should indicate to us as the community as affirmatives.
I get that. I can appreciate that. However, we have to, without sounding, like the guy who's always like, you know what, it's not enough. It's not enough. I don't want to be that guy. But at some point, we need more.
Yeah.
And I hate to say that I'm getting like all of these skeptics out there who are like, where's the proof? Where's the evidence? The old saying, extraordinary claims need extraordinary evidence. At some point, though, we have to stop with the basic conversations, because that's what it is. It's basic conversation.
Yeah, but I guess my response back to the statement, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, is that extraordinary evidence has been provided. But the people who are cynical and really don't want to accept any evidence, there's no amount of quote unquote proof that can ever be provided that will sway those people.
I agree with you on that point. I totally agree with you on that point. I've stated that on the show many a times. There is no proof or evidence that will make everybody happy. What's going to excite you is going to enrage others in this field, right? And now with AI being as advanced as it is, there's no way we could ever trust another video.
Yeah.
There's no way you could trust audio. There's no way you could trust a photograph unless you are the person taking it and it's true.
Well, and we've talked about that before. That I think, for the vast majority of people, the only way they're ever going to be swayed is when they have their own experience. but I think the precursor to that experience is just flipping the switch in your mind, and you may not even realize that you do it, but just flipping the switch in your mind to say, oh, maybe that is possible. And that's all it takes. And then suddenly, like in a dark world, you're a beacon of light, and the phenomena will find you and it will present itself to you probably when you least expect it. But the only way to get people to have that, that moment of flipping that switch to, for it to be possible, even just possible, is to saturate the field with as much content and documentary and details as possible. I mean, we're already starting to see a little bit of the effects of this, because I can tell you that, at my current employer, most people I work with are open to talking about the phenomena. They've had an experience of their own within, some realm, not necessarily UFOs, but an experience of their own. And when they know that I investigate for MUFON, or I have a podcast where I talk about the subject, they're more open to talk about it themselves. So, that's only the case because of the continued saturation of good evidence and quote unquote, qualified people coming forward to present what they are able to present now. I understand exactly what you mean. We need more data. We need more evidence. We need more quote unquote proof. And I think we will get there, but it is a slow, glacier slow process to get this information out.
The drip continues is what you were saying.
Yep. The drip continues. Yeah, you need that on a shirt, Dave. Have a disclosure coffee pot, and then it's sitting in a percolator. The drip continues.
Speaking of which, here's a funny story for you. A lot of the logos that I get for my SOR store on our website, I use this website. Paid a bunch of money to have access to those.
Mm-hmm.
Been using this site for about a year and a half. Never an issue until I get an email today stating that I am under copyright infringement for their logos and using them on our shirts.
Wow.
Now they want me to pay another bunch of money in order to have those
Commercial
shirts licensed.
Yeah.
I'm like, for a year and a half, I paid for a premium membership, a premium lifetime membership, in order to get this. And now I'm getting dinged by this, man. It's going to be an extra like $500 a year for me.
AI.
It's almost that point. I might have to get rid of all my shirts now and redo them all through AI.
That just means that all of your existing shirts that anybody has are collector's items.
Yes. Yes.
There's marketing in everything, Dave.
Yeah. Oh, I know. So I'm going to get them to send me a list of the ones that I'm allegedly copyright infringed on, and I will toast those shirts.
You also should just confirm and contact the company directly. Like, you look up their contact information and you contact the company and ask them if that email is legitimate, because it could also be a scammer.
I already did today.
Okay, cool.
I've already done that, because that was the first thing that came to my mind was, okay, which ones? Is this a scam or not?
Yeah.
And so I actually went on the website and I said, I've got an email from you guys saying that I'm in copyright infringement. And, what's going on here? What is going on here? What is your boggle? And they confirmed that the email was true.
That's unfortunate. I hate that for you.
It happens. It happens. So what I'm going to have to do is find out which logos, pull them down, and then go to AI and make my own.
Yep.
It's kind of silly for them to do that. But what do you do?
What can you do? You know,
What
like
can you do?
get your vintage Sora swag now.
Right? I'm sure they're going to try and nail me on everything. Right? But what do you do? Nothing I can do about it. I'm sure it was, if it's just like one, and it's one of those letters, man, where it's like, if you do not respond to this within 30 days, we will look at taking, legal action towards your company. Well. Where can everybody find you?
You can go to my website, mysticjourneys.com. Everything is linked from my website. And I actually have the opportunity now on the website where you can book a private dowsing session with me if you'd like to do that.
I'd douse with you, my friend. I'd totally douse with you.
Yeah. Now we got a lot of great information that did it at the MUFON camp out here in Phoenix. I did a couple of weeks back. Got a lot of great content came through on the dowsing rods. It's a fantastic experience for sure.
I love it. And don't forget, hit subscribe, Mystic Journeys on YouTube. That is Josh's channel. Make sure you hit subscribe there because he does great work there. Josh, outstanding way to kick off your week on SOR. We greatly appreciate you, my friend, and thank you very much as we say goodnight to the UFO wizard. And hello to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Rocket in the background with Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on X, hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and Bigfoot Broadcasting Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night, everybody. Good job, little Joshy Rutledge. We appreciate that.
Yeah, man.
Always a pleasure to have you here.
I was going to tell you what you should take the letter they sent you, the email, and throw it into ChatGPT along with your license details that you do have, and say, do I have any like legal ability to fight this, and see what ChatGPT says. I mean, obviously it's not a lawyer and it's going to tell you that, but you should still, it still might come back and be like, nah, this is pretty solid, or, here's some opportunity, something worth talking to a lawyer about in here, and point some things out. So.
Yeah. Well, I did get to customer service. They said I have to, we do not handle legal matters. If you need any assistance, please reply directly, which is Now, where do I email these people? I'll go like that. Send that. Input. Okay. And go from there. All right. It's all good. We'll get it figured out. Pull a bunch of shirts down. I'll just redo them. You know?
Yep. If you need any help, I'm pretty good with AI. So,
well, that's good.
You could even
better with it.
You could take the one you downloaded from them, throw it into AI, and say, "Hey, create a different version of this." And just let
Can you download a PNG from them though?
What, from AI?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, if I got to redo a bunch, I'll redo a bunch. I'm okay with that.
Yep. So, all right, man. I'll talk to you
Buddy.
later.
Have a good night.
Bye, everybody.
All right. The UFO wizard right there, Josh Rutledge. That's why we love him around here. Yeah, we do. Such a nice dude. Such a nice dude. As nice of a person as he is, he's as nice as Tim Mothman's goatee. Yes, he is. As nice as Tim Mothman's goatee. That's a big compliment for Josh Rutledge right there. Give me 2 seconds here. All right, there we go. For the rest of you, we have a nice treat for you tomorrow night. Samantha Mowat will be here. Samantha Mowat will be here talking about life as a contactee. It's going to be a great show. Been a while since we had Sam on, so it's about that time again, and I know you guys love her. So it'll be good. Big thank you tonight to T-Bone, Shaq Filet, JSCO, Kitty Cattywhack, UAP Thompson, and number one for the great super chats. I will see you tomorrow night. Thank you to everyone who's new and hit subscribe, and we'll chat with you on Hump Day. No, tomorrow's not Hump Day. Tomorrow's Tuesday. Let's talk tomorrow. Let's do it that way. Good night, everybody.
healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.